G'day jabronis, it is the Verd back with you again, and we are here for our week 1 team builder for the NPL. I can't tell you guys how excited I am to be back battling. I've done a lot of help with friends and that, with their mocks and whatnot, and it just kind of reignites that fire. I definitely needed the break, but being able to get back into building was a lot of fun this week. And I mean, it's going to be a pretty tough week though, guys. We are up against Gypsy King and the Sydney Sharpedos. Gypsy is probably I would say my biggest rival right now. I feel that there's a few other guys that I'd love to have as rivals, but Gypsy, you know, he is kind of the monkey on my back. Last season, we played him twice, and we ended up losing both times 6-0. Granted, the first time was a meme game, the second time stung a lot. I feel like my prep just wasn't as good as it could have been for the matchup. I feel like he, in himself, had a very strong matchup, and so I feel this week, this time around, this season, I definitely have a point to prove. We are in separate divisions, so it means there's a chance of us playing again in the final or in playoffs again, because they're going to be randomized. So I really want to put my best foot forward with this team, and as you can see, Gypsy's team is stacked. Like, we assisted each other, like we talk about, you know, things that we could draft and whatnot, and you know, he really wanted Rotomosh, he wasn't able to get it, but his team is just so terrifying still, and his lower tier mons are very, very good. But I feel that the team that I brought this week will be strong enough to take him down. I'm hoping it will be. If you guys are hyped for this, make sure you like the video, all that good stuff. We're going to crack in to this team. So, my designated lead for this matchup is going to be my Diancie. Basically, as Gypsy used it a lot last season, the premise of Diancie is more just to kind of lead and go for protect. If he leads with the Selgor and tries to final Gambit me turn 1, I'm protecting. I don't have time for that. Not letting that happen, then I can go safely out to my Gengar if I have to. And he can't then go for Spice. If he leads with Garchomp, I can scout to see if he maybe has a Scarf set and he's trying to stay in and attack me. If he leads Medicham, I can protect and scout just to see if he has Bullet Punch, or if he maybe tries to go for Fake Out instead. I'm not too sure. I believe he should run. I mean, the Medi set that I'm fully expecting Gypsy to bring is Bullet Punch, Toxic, Ice Punch, and Drain Punch. I feel like that's the most efficient set that he could bring against me, but Gypsy might surprise me with some kind of crazy set. But regardless, the Diancie is going to be running Substitute as well. The reason for this is because there's a lot of mons on Gypsy's team that Diancie can pressure, mainly things like the Mandibuzz and the Nihilego, and by going for Substitute, as he goes out to his, I would say his only real check to Diancie, in my opinion, which is the Aegislash, I can bring in Diancie in that situation, and I can just straight up go for the Earth Power behind the sub. And the reason why this is good with Protect is it creates a mind game, not even Protect, sorry, with Substitute, is it creates a mind game with Aegislash. In order to break my sub, Gypsy is going to have to go into his attack form. And then after that, I am out of my Substitute, but he is also in his attack form still, which is significantly weaker. So it's the mind game of, does he go for the King Shield so that he can survive that turn, but then risk me going for Substitute, or does he try and attack that turn, and I choose not to Substitute, and I go straight for the Earth Power and knock out his Aegislash. So that's going to be an interesting little decision. I was definitely with the Protect, tossing up between Protect and Calm Mind. I felt Calm Mind could have been really solid too, because there'd be situations where I'd want to click Calm Mind and then be able to just straight away knock out Aegislash, and that's huge in the game. Like, if I go for one Earth Power and weaken it, and then say he goes for King Shield and I Calm Mind, and he doesn't have Flash Cannon and he's just going for Shadow Ball, I can then live that Shadow Ball anyway after going for that sub, and then be good. But because of how important lead Diancie is to shutting down things like the Aselgor, the Garchomp, scouting Medicham, it's really hard to not want to chuck Protect on there, and it is a safer bet overall. Being able to scout a lot of mons is really, really important to me, so that's why I have stuck with Protect on Diancie. Moonblast plus Earth Power. The speed is basically designed so I outspeed Nihilego, and then the extra bit of bulk has been chucked into defense. It means that if he's not like a max attack Chomp, there is a chance that I can leave EQ. It's not a very good chance at all, but it could come in handy. The bulk's more in there as well, so I could go for like subs, and if I'm at 26%, maybe I can survive an Egg slash Shadow Sneak. There was a plan initially also to chuck on Endeavor, because I'm running Substitute, but I felt that it wouldn't be as effective as Protect in this matchup, unfortunately. But moving on to our next mon that we're bringing, probably the mon that I'm most excited to bring for this week, and that is my Gliscor. So Gliscor's running a pretty interesting set this week. It is kind of mixed bulk, but very, very much focused on special defense. The reason for this is because Gliscor is my primary check to Aegislash. Now, you might be saying, Verge, you handsome bastard, that's a great idea and all, but surely the fact that Aegislash can just go for HP Ice, you'll be in trouble. Well, luckily, I've designed this Gliscor so that max special attack, quiet-natured Aegislash's HP Ice will never knock me out. And then from there, I can just spam Roost and be able to kind of mitigate a lot of the damage you can do. Granted, it's not the best way to deal with Aegislash, but it's definitely a difficult mon to prep for in this game. With the combination of things like Roost, Taunt, this set's really strong against this team. The only issue I was having when it came to building it was how much speed I wanted on my Gliscor, and it really comes down to how Gypsy prepares his Suicune. So if he runs like a standard FizzDef Suicune, I'm easily going to be able to outspeed that. I can taunt that thing straight away, which means if he's just running the Crocoon set, all he can do is click Scald against me. I'll already be poisoned, so I won't care. And then after that, the other thing is if he runs the faster Suicune with like the subset, then that could be slightly annoying, but I do have things like my Ferrothorn, which are designed to kind of counter that sub-Suicune style of build as opposed to the Crocoon side. So I have like ways of dealing with both sets of Suicune. Gliscor can tank a lot of hits. It can also take hits on the FizzDef side. This is also actually one of my biggest checks to Nihilego, funnily enough. It can actually take hits incredibly well, and it's just a solid all-round mon. Taunt plus Toxic shuts down a lot of his team, especially like, you can't bring Unaware Clef, because I will just 1v1 Unaware Clef, unless it has Ice Beam, but even then, if I can get a Toxic off on Unaware Clef, he's going to have a really hard time being able to set up and put in work. So yeah, moving on to my main physical defensive mon for this week, and it is going to be my Necrozma. Basic premise behind this set was I definitely wanted Morning Sun to be able to just handle the Metachamp, but then I was definitely keen on an SD set, because the funny thing about Necrozma is it doesn't need that much attack investment to really put in work. Like with that attack investment at +2, Photon Geyser is always 2-hit KOing FizzDef Clef. So unless he's running Cosmic Power, I will be able to 2-hit KO that thing without any issues. The only downside of Photon Geyser is its PP, and I need to be really careful about that, especially if Suicune is still around. I don't want to be setting up in the Necrozma until Suicune is dealt with, because he can just easily heal up with Suicune, and if I run out of Geysers, then it's really bad for me. Knockoff is there because it gets off like 15% at +2 on Mandibuzz, which could be crucial to knock it out, and it also hits Aegislash. That's the main reason. Initially, I did have Earthquake there, but then I would have had no way to hit Mandibuzz, and I feel like that's just not what I want to have. Like, I want to have some way to at least hit it, so that if it's low on health, I can prevent it from roosting. Granted, the problem with this Necrozma set is that it is going to be slower than a Mandibuzz, so it would be able to roost off. So I'm questioning. The thing is though, like, Knockoff is not generally meant to be used at +2 unless it's against Aegislash. It's more designed to be a move that I can click when my opponent tries to swap, like out to Suicune, boom, get rid of lefties, out to Mandibuzz, get rid of lefties. Like, I can just do those kind of plays, which I feel will be more beneficial for me. But the main premise of this set is to deal with Metacham and, to an extent, Garchomp. Garchomp is easily the biggest threat on Gypsy's team to my team. 100%. Will not deny. There are a lot of Garchomp sets you can run, but like, just standard Chomp is very, very scary for me in this matchup. So being able to deal with it is of the highest importance. And so having my team designed in a way where Garchomp can't really set up on anything, or I've tried to set it up in a way where it can't set up on anything, is really crucial. And with Necrozma, he can set up an SD, but I can just straight up go for Photon Geyser, and that will potentially weaken him to the point where something else can revenge it afterwards. It will make me a little bit weaker to Metachamp, but I do have 3 different mons that can outspeed it, one of which will die to hard priority, but 2 won't, so I can still play around it. It's not ideal though. I need to try and preserve Necrozma. It is probably my biggest, funnily enough, the weird thing is it's one of my biggest win cons late game. If I can dispose of Mandibuzz and Suicune, then he doesn't have a lot on his team to actually stop a Necrozma. So really important to try and preserve this if I can. Next up, we've got a pretty interesting set here. It is my Ferrothorn. I wanted to bring kind of a lure set for this matchup, and that's why I've gone with like an Ockerberry plus an offensive set, but I'm running Rocks. So the premise is that I want to try and get Rocks up with Ferrothorn, because Rocks against Gypsy's team is massive. It allows a lot more KOs on a lot more mons, and a lot more pressure for me to scout things like the Unaware Clef situation. The big thing about this set, though, I would say, is the SD. So you might be wondering, like, why the hell are you running SD Bullet Seed? What is this madness? Bullet Seed is really important in this matchup for a few reasons. By going for SD, it means that Garchomp can't just set up on me, and if he has Fire Blast, I have an Occa Berry to take it if I need to, and depending on his special attack investment, I can actually take one Fire Blast with the Occa Berry, and then take another one afterwards. And the reason why I'm running the SD plus Bullet Seed is for sub SD Chomp and sub Coon. I feel like Vincoon is a set that Gypsy could definitely bring in this matchup, given that a lot of my water types that could come in against Suicune just lose to Subcoon. I feel like it's definitely a possibility, but I'm also wary of sub-toxic HP Fire and Scald Suicune, which has been like the most popular set in mocks, which is why I've got the Occa Berry. It's not just designed for things like Nihilego HP Fire, for Clef's Flamethrower, for Garchomp's Fire Blast. It definitely covers all those. If I need it to take one, it can, but it's also for potential HP Fire Suicune, so I can take the hit, go for the SD, and then Bullet Seed will absolutely decimate, depending on what kind of Suicune set he is. Like I said, if he's the Crocoon, then Gliscor's got that handled. I can taunt that thing, I can toxic that thing, it's all good, covered. If it's the faster Suicune, it means it has less physical defense, which means that Bullet Seed, just standard from a brave-natured Ferrothorn with 2 hits, does 49% minimum, meaning I'm breaking the sub and then getting extra chip on the Suicune from there. And like I said with Necrozma, if I can knock that item off, it means he's getting no recovery back, which is really, really handy. So it can 1v1 Suicune. It's a little bit weak to Aegislash, I will be honest. However, there are mind games with Aegislash because I am obviously going to be slower than it. It means that if he goes into Blade form too early, he'll regret it, and even in shield form, if I am at +2, then Bullet Seed's doing like 25%, so it definitely forces his hand a lot, but I don't also want to allow him to get to, say, like +6, so in the situation of Aegislash, I'm probably just going to go hard out to Gliscor, just to kind of cover that situation, but this thing, like with the Bullet Seed, is going to be huge, and Gyro Ball just gets a lot of kills, like it just knocks out so many mons, and I've actually EV'd it in a way where, defensively speaking, it can take a +2 EQ from a Garchomp, but then also, especially defensively speaking, it can live like +1 flamethrowers from Clef, it can eat up +1 HP fires from Nihilego, like it can do a lot of stuff, which is really, really important because I want Ferrothorn to be a main focal point of this team. Being able to get up those rocks early game would be crucial, but then also having the ability to go on from there and pressure his team with the SD set is going to be massive. But moving on to 2 more aggressive Pokemon, not to say Ferrothorn isn't aggressive, but Gengar is probably my main wall breaker of this team, alongside Diancie. Running a naive nature, which is a bit of an odd one, I suppose. The main reason, that I'm running a naive nature is because I really want to run Sucker Punch in this matchup. I feel that it's going to be very underrated and he's not going to expect it. If he's running like a Sash Leader Selgor, I can just bop that thing straight away. Like, sure, he could go for Water Shuriken, but at the same time, I feel like if he has HP Ground, he'll want to click it, and he won't expect the Sucker Punch on Gengar. This is also really handy against the Aegislash. If it has set up to like +6, I can just go for Sucker Punch and knock that thing straight out. If it gets into shield form, as long as I weaken it to about 30 to 25%, Sucker Punch should be able to knock it out from there. So I'm feeling alright about that. It's the same with Garchomp if he runs like the sub Salax set. Sucker Punch does like 14 to 15, but because of Ferrothorn being able to weaken things with the Bullet Seed through the substitutes, it means I can probably weaken it to the point where Gengar can knock that out too. The moveset itself is pretty straightforward. Shadow Ball plus Sludge Wave covers a lot of his team. Anything that those 2 moves don't cover is what Dazzling Gleam does. Dazzling Gleam is also really nice because I can click it against Medicham and catch the Mandibuzz if it tries to come in too. So it covers both fields, like Life Orb, Dazzling Gleam, Oko's Medicham, and will do half to Spadef Mandibuzz. So it's really important because Gengar's my best way of pressuring the Mandibugs to clear hazards, especially the rocks that I set up with Ferrothorn. Then having Gengar be able to 2-hit KO the Mandibuzz after taking rocks and the Gleam is massive. That's a huge factor in this game, and Gengar is a seriously important one. I have to keep it healthy too, because of the fact that with the Life Orb, it might get weakened into Bullet Punch range from Medicham. I don't want to see that happen until like, I have something else that can cover it, but definitely important. Curse Body can also be clutch, because if late game it's like Gengar plus Diancie against Medicham, and like Bullet Punch can kill Gengar, I could potentially get the Curse Body on the Bullet Punch, and then Diancie can come in and clean. So that might happen. I don't know. That would be hilarious if it did, though. I'd feel bad for Gypsy, but also be kind of crazy. And then finally, because my team needed a little bit of speed, I decided to chuck on a Choice Scarfed Xurkitree. I definitely tossed up a few sets with the Xurkitree. There's a really cool one that I want to try maybe next time if I play Gypsy again. We will see, but this is the set I kind of decided on. Now, it's a bit of an odd one. I'll kind of try and break it down. So, one of the big factors a lot of people were talking about was, oh, you know that Vileplume just walls Xurkitree. And that is true. Like, Vileplume, especially against this Xurkitree set, would wall it. And even like a Tail Glow Xurkitree, HP Ice, you know, is a roll to kill. Like, if it's not even a roll to kill, like, fully specially defensive Vileplume can take it on quite easily. So Sub-Salak Xurk was kind of out the window because of his priority. And then I was planning like this other set, which would have 1v1 the Vileplume, but then I thought, like, what if he doesn't bring Plume? Like, what is the point of this set if, like, Plume's not there? So, because of that, I decided to go with this Scarf set. It's designed so that it outspeeds Modest Aselgor. I feel no reason for Gypsy to run Timid in this matchup. There's nothing on my team that really outspeeds Timid. He would only run that if he was trying to prevent me from running Modest Zerk to outspeed it. But Zerk has enough like natural bulk where it can take a hit if it needs to from Aselgor. And this set just kind of goes in. I'm running Volt Switch because I want to use it more as a kind of scouting move. If he brings the Vileplume, it's really important, because initially over Volt Switch was Energy Ball for the Quagsire. However, I don't feel like Quagsire is a smart bring for Gypsy in this matchup. I feel like I have too many members of my team that can handle Quagsire, and so I don't expect it to be coming. Especially the Ferrothorn. Like, Ferrothorn kind of just walls it to hell and back, but this set, so Volt Switch, like I said, is a pivot move around the Vileplume. Thunderbolt is the main, just late game, click it. If Garchomp is down and Vileplume is weakened, Thunderbolt can just sweep through his team. Hidden Power Ground is there because it covers not only Aegislash but Nihilego, and can still get consistent damage on things like the Garchomp and other mons like that. And then Gleam is probably, again, a main attack of choice like with Gengar, because of the fact that it can cover Garchomp, Mandibuzz, and Mega Medicham all at the same time. It doesn't really cover Aegislash, but all of my other moves cover Aegislash. Hidden Power Ground from the Modest Nature does like 79% min to Nihilego. It's like a 37% chance to knock it out after rocks. So any chip damage before that, like looking at you freaking Sucker Punch Gengar, or alternatively, Zerk comes in and dies, but then Gengar can clean up there with the Sucker Punch, which is huge. So really important mon. With the Beast Boost, it's gonna like just rip through Gypsy's team. So yeah, the plan is kind of to use my triple kind of defensive core, I suppose, of Gliscor, Necrozma, and Ferrothorn really well at the start to try and just wear down his team over time, because all of them have a way to wear them down. Using Diancie with its subset to really punch home against Aegislash, and then using Gengar's Life Orb set after the rocks are up to try and plow through. Maybe I won't get rocks up, like there may be situations where it's better to not get the rocks up, but I will try to get them up if I can. And then it's all to kind of lead into Zerk potentially sweeping, but Zerk doesn't need to sweep either. It's more designed to maybe catch a few things on Gypsy's team off guard, and net a few really important kills that pave the way for a different Pokemon to sweep. But having it here, I feel will be really, really important to the overall play of the game. My aim, really, guys, as dumb as it sounds heading into this game against Gypsy, my aim is just not to get 6-0'd again. It's happened a lot of times that I played him. Like, I've just lost very considerably. And it's weird, because I've performed well enough to where I should be on, not like the same level as him, but enough to where I can make it a competitive game. So that is the aim here. Like, I feel that this team will be incredibly competitive. It can really like hang with what he's trying to do. So definitely keen to see how it goes. Gypsy obviously is a phenomenal competitor, so it's going to be a hell of a game regardless. But I definitely back my team. I back my ability as a player. And I feel like if I follow the strategies that I want to do and don't, like, my biggest issue I've had with the mocks, and I'm worried about heading into the game, is my late game management. A lot of times I actually put myself in a really good position to win games, but then I make the wrong decision and it ends up losing me the game. So I don't want that to happen again. I want to try and make the right decisions to get the right result. But that's going to do it for this one, guys. A nice, clean, under 20-minute team builder. Didn't expect it to be that short, but I guess I did explain things pretty quickly and efficiently. So the basic plan, like I said, is Gliscor, Necrozma, and Ferrothorn kind of just do the job of pivoting and dealing with stuff. Diancie can sub and hurt things. Gengar can blow them away. Zerk can kind of just clean late game or just break through a few things itself. So that's the kind of plan. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have liked this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're new. And don't forget to check out Gypsy's channel as well. I'll probably try and link that in the description. And I'll link the NPL channel in the description because they talk about your boy and all the other coaches. Go check them out. I won't chuck them all in the description. But yeah, definitely excited for this game. Very nervous. I think just there's definitely a point to prove to Gypsy in this game. And I'm like very much focused on proving this point. I think that I am a good enough player to where I can not only take it to him, but I can beat him. And I'm hoping my performance in this upcoming game will prove that. But we'll see what happens, guys. That's good for me, though. Thank you for watching. My name is The Bird. and I'm out this bit. G'day jabronis, it is the Verd here, and welcome to our Week 1 match for the NPL against Gypsy King and the Sydney Sharpedos, the rematch of the semi-final from last season. I was very nervous heading into this game. I tried recording it using regular, like Camtasia with Facecam and everything, like live, but for some reason Camtasia is fine doing the Wi-Fi battles, but struggles when it comes to the showdown stuff, so I was like, whatever, we'll just, we'll go with it. Gypsy brought pretty much the team I was expecting. I was a little bit disappointed not to see Suicune. I really wanted this Ferrothorn to put in more work, but a Selgor made a lot of sense over it. I did predict the final 5 there, and instead of a Selgor, I was expecting Suicune, but I can understand why a Selgor's there. Overall, it was going to be an interesting matchup. My big plan was that Zerk has a really good chance to run through his team if I can get rid of that Garchomp. So that was the first thing that was kind of coming to mind. I knew Necrozma also had a really good matchup if I could weaken the Mandibuzz. I was like very much in this game tossing up between I wish I had Stone Age or I wish I had Knockoff. Overall, I don't regret running Knockoff. It was needed for the Aegislash, but there are a few things that happen in this game, and I will discuss how perhaps my team building thought process and everything else kind of came into factor, and something that'll also have a factor, I think, in my Week 2 performance. I just kind of want to discuss them here. But without further ado, let's get into the game here against Gypsy. So I do lead off with Diancie, he leads off with Garchomp. So I always knew my plan was to lead with Diancie in this situation, because if he was a Scarf Chomp and I go for Protect, then I can scout what he wants to do just fine and be able to take it on. So turn 1, I'm going to Protect, not waste any time, just protect it up as he does drop the EQ, which obviously I can live just fine. I double into my Gliscor because I know he probably is going to EQ again, because again, in my mind, I'm thinking that he is a Scarfed Garchomp. So Gliscor comes in, this gives me a free Toxicorp thing, so I'm pretty happy about that. And then he proceeds to get up his rocks. Now this sucked because I really thought that he was a Scarf Chomp. So I went for Toxic, actually predicting Mandibuzz to want to come in. But the rocks are very frustrating because it just means that like it's going to chip away at my team a bit. I didn't want them to come up. And truth be told, what I should have done on that turn, or I did kind of misplay it, I think. On that turn, I should have doubled back into my Diancie. Reason for that is because it covered the potential rock play if he wasn't Scarfed. But also, if Gypsy was going into Mandibuzz, then Diancie was a no-brainer. Like, if I was predicting him to want to go into his Mandibuzz, Diancie made a ton of sense. So, bit of a misplay on my part, but at the same time, poisoning the Garchomp is really important, like I said, for the Xurkitree. So, Garchomp's poison, feeling pretty good about it. He reveals the SD, and this is where I'm like, okay. And the EQ did a good chunk though, and this is where I had to think on my feet. I'm like, alright. So Garchomp has just clicked an SD, he is at 48%. And I knew that I could outspeed it with my Xurkitree, but what I was worried about was the potential for this to be a Salac Chomp. I didn't want to lose too many Mons. I knew I could handle it because of Sucker Punch Gengar and Scarf Zerk, but I didn't really want to lose any Mons in the process. So what I do actually is I believe I double into my Ferrothorn. He makes a really nice read and goes into his Medicham. Fortunately for me, I do have a very good switch into the Medicham, and that is my Necrozma. As Medicham can just click the Drain Punch. It does absolutely nothing, I can heal it up. From that damage, I can easily tell it's a Jolly Nature. I knew he had to be Jolly in this matchup. He needs to be able to creep a Hydreigon. It is essential for him, so you can definitely understand that. And I'm in a pretty decent position here with Necrozma. In hindsight, I was starting to regret the potential for SD. If I could have, I probably would have just given it Stone Edge over SD, just so I had something to at least hit the Mandibuzz with, or potentially Toxic for the Mandibuzz. Just not being able to hit that thing could be really detrimental. But anyway, he does go into Mandibuzz here, as I do go for the Knock, which is really nice because I get rid of those. I get rid of the Mental Herb. So the Mental Herb would have been for if he maybe tried to defog against the Gliscor going for Taunt. So that's a really nice bring on Gypsy's part. I do like that a lot. What I can do here is go hard into my Diancie, as I kind of predicted him to either want to U-turn there or to stay in and potentially go for a knockoff of his own. But he does go for the U-turn. Really nice play on Gypsy's part. He goes out to Medicham. I'm going to Protect just because I just want to double check that he does have the Bullet Punch. I was pretty confident it was going to be the move he'd click, but it's always nice to just double check. Now the issue that I was finding already at this early stage of the game was the combination of Mandibuzz and Medicham against my team. And this is where I come back to, I wish I had Toxic on my Necrozma. Because if I had Toxic on my Necrozma over this Swords Dance, then I would have been in a much better position overall against the majority of his team. If Mandibuzz didn't have Taunt, I could just click Toxic against the Mandibuzz, poison it, and then it wouldn't constantly be coming in against my Necrozma. It would be getting weakened down every time. So, was definitely regretting that. What I'm going to do here is go for a Morning Sun to get my health back up as the Acelgor comes in. I'm going to go into my Gliscor because I know I can take the combination of a Bug Buzz and an HP Ice from this Acelgor. Because of how specially defensive I designed my Gliscor, I'm going to be able to take both of those, and I'm going to be able to drop a Toxic. Now, the downside is that my Gliscor is, as you can see, quite weakened, but I know that I can get a Roost off against Clefable, against Mandibuzz, and potentially against Aegislash if I can predict the turn that he goes for a King Shield. So, there is that. So, my plan was now just to go hard into my Xurkitree. The reason for this is because he can't click Bug Buzz because it won't kill me from this range, so he's forced to HP Ice, which is good for me. And this is a big 50-50 turn. I really wanted to click Dazzling Gleam on this turn, like so badly, because I knew it would cover the Acelgor, the Garchomp, and the Mandibuzz all at the same time. But it wouldn't cover the Aegislash, but at the same time, I could go into Ferrothorn against the Aegislash. And I really wanted to click Dazzle to be able to hit the Garchomp for damage. It was something I just really thought would be a good idea. And I was so close to clicking it, but then I was like, you know what, Volt Switch is a safe play. Gypsy doesn't need to risk his Garchomp at this point. It can still put in a lot of work, especially with Gliscor weakened. But unfortunately, he does choose to go Garchomp, so I make a bad prediction there. If I'd gone for Dazzle, I could have knocked out the Chomp and been in a much better spot. I'm forced to go hard into my Ferrothorn to take this Earthquake, and from this damage, what I do is make a pretty aggressive read, but it turns out to work perfectly in my favor. So I predict that there is no other move he can go for that can kill off my Ferrothorn there, so I predict him to go for EQ again as I go into my Gliscor, and then I double back into my Ferrothorn to force him to die to Dragon Claw. So Gypsy is the one that loses his Mon first, and that does mean, compared to our last encounter, it will not be a 6-0. So you know what, for me, that's a personal victory right there. He does go into a Acelgor. I have no reason to preserve my Ferrothorn to let it go down. Zerk comes back in, and Zerk can go for a free Volt Switch here. And this was the biggest turn of the game, in my opinion. Of all the turns, turn 20 was the biggest turn. Because I choose a bad play here. Gypsy goes Aegislash, and I click Thunderbolt. Why this is a bad play is I had no reason to not click Volt Switch, because Volt Switch there, if the Acelgor stayed in, I could have gone into stuff like Gengar or Diancie, both of which could have taken the hit if they needed to in that situation, and from that range, Acelgor would have died to Toxic Spikes. Oh, not Toxic Spikes, the Toxic from the Gliscor. It would have died to that. And if he had gone Aegislash, then I could have Volt Switched, and like I said, I could have gone into my Gliscor and been at enough HP to where Aegislash's Shadow Sneak could not have knocked me out. So I kind of shot myself in the foot there. I had no reason to click T-Bolt, and now I've put myself in a really tricky spot, because this is an Assault Vest Aegislash. I knew the moment I clicked Thunderbolt, it was Assault Vest from the damage that it took. Like, Aegislash is not normally taking that little, because Xurkitree is a strong bastard. So I really regretted not clicking Volt Switch. It would have been so much better, giving me so much more momentum as well. And now I'm in a really, really, really bad position, because Ferrothorn's down, Gliscor's weakened, I don't have a switch in to Aegislash. So I have to think on my feet and say to myself, what are the things I need most in this game to have the best chance of winning? And the only way I could win was if I was able to poison the Mandibuzz and cripple it down that way. And then if Mandibuzz is crippled down and weakened, the rest of his team can lose to Necrozma. So that was the kind of mindset I was going into, because Ferrothorn was down, because Gliscor was weakened. My plan was to heal up Gliscor and use a combination of Gliscor and Necrozma with the other offensive mons. This was also a bad decision. See, if I clicked Volt Switch, the other big factor is that I could have just gone straight into my Gliscor, like I said, got up my Roost, and been in a phenomenal position. Because Diancie being healthy in the late game probably would have let me win. But, spoilers, it's not going to turn out well because I have to send in Diancie. The reason being is because if I go into Gengar, it'll die, and Gengar can break pretty much everything on his team. If I go into Gliscor, it'll die, and if I go into Necrozma, which is my only Medicham check left, I can't allow it to come in. So Diancie was the most expendable mon. He does click Shadow Ball. It does a metric fuck ton. I go back into my Necrozma, and I basically have to make a bit of a 50-50 choice. This is where, again, I kind of wish I had Stone Edge, because I could have just clicked it here for free. But I believe... So Diancie had to go down, which was really, really frustrating. In hindsight, I could have sacked off Gengar instead, but it would have made the matchup against Clefable really, really frustrating. So I kind of bit the bullet on that one and said, you know what, Gengar can put in a lot of work, I'm going to keep it alive. So he goes into Mandy, and I go for SD on that turn because in that situation with SD, I kind of predicted him to want to just King Shield with his Aegislash to try and protect for a turn and sus. Because at this point, it hadn't fully clicked to me that he was Assault Vest. That was the problem. Like, I realize it now, looking back at the calc, but at the time, because of the horrible decision I made, I assumed, like, well, I can click T-Bolt, and, you know, like, this should 2-hit KO Aegislash, and by the time that had happened, so I made a bad play here. I shouldn't have SD'd because it was obvious that Aegislash wasn't going to stay in. And this is where having Diancie would have been huge, because Diancie has Sub-Protect. And that means that I can play around Gypsy's shield form really, really easily. So looking back on it now, sacking off Diancie and not clicking Volt Switch with Xurkitree lost me the game. Straight up, because just looking into the future, you can see Gengar is my only real effective way of breaking the rest of Gypsy's team at this point. Because Xurkitree, after it comes in on rocks, is basically already in range of Aegislash's Shadow Sneak. Which means that then I'm basically relying on Gengar with a Life Orb to take care of an entire team of Mons. Now, if Gengar did have Protect, then I could play around the Aegislash by protecting on the Sneak and Sucker Punching the next turn when it's in Blade form and knocking it out, but I didn't do that. So, Minoru can't touch this. I have to go hard into Xurkitree because I know he's probably going to go for Foul Play. Zerk doesn't take that well, which sucks. I actually had another Zerk set in mind for this matchup that I really regret like not bringing, because if it wasn't Unaware Clef, it just won. Like, Aegislash was not going to counter it, which sucked, but, you know, the problem that I have, and it's a thing I would kind of discuss, I have a very big issue of overthinking. I actually come up with really good sets initially and then shoot them down myself without actually giving them a fair shake, or I come up with another idea and assume that idea is going to be better than the original one I made. And one thing I've learned, especially through like 10-pin bowling that I do, is if everything else is failing, you should go back to like what you did at the start, because that was clearly the thing that you knew was going to be the most effective. And I just wish I'd done that in this game against Gypsy. If I get to play him again, I'll definitely bring that set, but alas. He's going to go Clef, I'm going to Thunderbolt, and I get a fat crit. The crit doesn't matter, because Clef can just protect this turn and live the next one. So, that's unfortunate for me. I am going to drop the Thunderbolt, and he does live on one, goes for the Wish, and I'm sitting here like, okay, what's he going to do? I double into Gengar, making an aggressive read on Protect, because I know he's going to win that exchange. And here, I figured it was a bit of a 50-50 again. He would either go into Mandibuzz or he would go for the sack, because if he sacks off Clefable here, it's fine for him because Zerk's dead, Gliscor's almost dead, so quite frankly he could just go into Aegislash if Clef dies here and win. And that's kind of why, I mean, it was a tough choice. I knew that as well at the time, that AG basically won. That's kind of why I wanted to Gleam, to maybe see if he wanted to then switch out and give me a chance. But I mean, Necrozma could still threaten it with the knockoff, I suppose. So then what I probably would have done is just what I should have done was Sludge Wave this. If AG comes in, I sack off Xurkitree as he changes his forms, and then I can go into Necrozma at least, pressure the Aegislash to switch out, and then go hard Gliscor on the Mandibuzz and get a Roost up. And then it would have been Gengar at this range of health with Necrozma and Gliscor against Mandy, Medicham, Selgor and Aegislash, which would have been actually a pretty solid matchup for me. But instead, like a fool, I go for Gleam, because at this point I was getting pretty tilted in myself. Like, I wasn't playing to my best ability, because things obviously weren't going my way after that Zerk play. And I was fixated on the fact that if I killed Mandibuzz, I could win with Necrozma. What I should have been thinking was, if I kill the Clefable, then it's less differential. Realistically, I should have been thinking more like that, because he gets a Moonblast off, and I do disable the Moonblast, but that damage on Gengar is just a death sentence. It basically almost puts me in range of Medicham's Bullet Punch. I think it does put me in range of Medicham's Bullet Punch, and it didn't need to happen. I could have just clicked Sludge Wave and he would have been dead. And then I just click Sludge Wave and he dies, but now I'm chilling at 39% instead of being at what would have been, I think, 78% at the time. I was going to click Sucker there, but I decided against it. I decided to sack off my Xurkitree again, as I know, again, like I said, he's going to stance change, and I can go into my Necrozma. And what I do this turn is I do that massive double into Gliscor that I was talking about, as he does go into Mandy, and I'm like, okay, this isn't too bad now. I can, maybe do some stuff. He goes into Medi, I'm going to Roost, and this is where I realized that without having Toxic on Necrozma, or without having a way to damage Mandibuzz on Necrozma, this was effectively checkmate. The only way I could win is if Gengar was able to kill Mandibuzz. Because Gliscor, the only way it can kill it is by Toxicking, but Mandibuzz can just U-turn out every time. And the only way that Necrozma can kill it is just prayer. And this is where a big factor in team building came back to haunt me. Because for a long time, I was tossing up between running Taunt, which I did end up going with, and Substitute. Now, if I ran Sub-Toxic on my Gliscor, then I could have bypassed Aegislash, and I also could have bypassed the Mandibuzz. Because by getting up a Substitute and then Toxicking Mandibuzz, even if it U-turns and he goes into Medicham, I can Toxic that thing. Straight up, weaken it down, Necrozma 1v1's that, Gliscor comes back in every time, and if Medicham's poisoned, it can't just keep coming back in every single time. Like, eventually it's gonna drop, and the same with Mandibuzz. So if I have the sub, then every time Gliscor comes back in, if Mandibuzz doesn't go for U-turn every single time it comes in, then he's screwed in that regard. So if I had run the subset, I'm not saying I would have won, because there's definitely so many more variables to factor in than that, but I definitely think it would have given me a better chance. So I go into Necrozma here, obviously, as he's going to go for the Ice Punch and gets a fat crit. It doesn't really matter too much, as long as it doesn't crit me on this next one, I'm okay, and he doesn't. So I can get off my Morning Sun, I can get a lot of HP back, I'm feeling good. I can't afford to switch out now, as I really would like to, but I'm going to do it anyway, because here, if I was able to sub on this turn, I would have been in a really good spot, because sure, a Selgor can go through my sub with Bug Buzz, but it's doing nothing, and I can basically just knock that thing out. So I get the Toxic off, which is awesome. So I've Toxic the Mandibuzz, which is what I wanted to do. He goes into a Selgor. Now I know that I can 1v1 this thing by roosting, and he's going to find that out, because that does nothing. I can roost up, and I'm 1v1ing this thing. Now on this turn, I should have realized that he knew I was going to be able to 1v1 him, and made a better play, but unfortunately I clicked Roost again. That was a bad play on my part. It was obvious he was going to lose that exchange. If I had made an aggressive play out to my Gengar, I would have been in a much better position there, but I didn't do that, which is my fault. I clicked Taunt here. If I had clicked Sub instead and I had Sub, then I would have been behind a Sub chilling, and Medicham could have got poisoned. And I genuinely think, judging on how the game was going, I could have won if that had happened. Because if Medicham was constantly taking poison damage in this game, then I think Gliscor just beat the rest of his team. So in my opinion, the way that I look at this game is that I definitely could have beat Gypsy. He played perfectly. He played the game how he should have. But I definitely think if I brought that set, that I would have beat him. Because over time, I would have worn down the Medicham, I would have worn down the Mandibuzz. Unless he was clicking U-turn every single turn, I would have been able to beat the last 4 Pokemon in his team, basically just with Gliscor by itself. Like, every time Medicham could have come in, I could have just clicked Sub every time, and he would have slowly died to his Toxic. Same with the Selgor. I could have just clicked Sub, or then clicked Roost on a turn, because HP Ice doesn't kill me. And then Aegislash, I can just click Sub to scout what move he goes for, and then just kill him on the next turn. And Mandy can't touch me, so everything there would have basically gone down to that Gliscor set if I brought that. And it's frustrating because I predicted around, potential for Suicune setting up, for all these other things, but the problem was, even if Suicune set up, I had a Ferrothorn that I brought on this team designed to deal with it, and even if the Mandibuzz roosted, who cares? Like, I can just poison that thing, get behind a Sub, and then what is Mandibuzz doing to me? So it's funny looking back on the game in retrospect and seeing that, you know, this idea that I thought was the right thing at the time just wasn't. It was, for all intents and purposes, a very bad idea. And I'm happy to cop that on the chin. I made a mistake on my set, and it's going to come back to haunt me because without Substitute, I have no way to break this team down. I could Morning Sun up here against the Mandy, and what I could potentially do here is I could have stayed in with Necrozma on that turn. But I figured he might want to go to Mandibuzz. And on this turn, I figure he may want to try and U-turn, but I still go for Taunt because I just don't want Mandy roosting. But the problem is, Mandy can just roost whenever it comes in against Necrozma, and there's nothing I can do about it. Like, literally nothing. So he's going to Ice Punch here with the Medicham, get another fat crit. And he's going to go into his Mandy, and I have to make plays. Because Mandy's going to roost here, and so what I do, I believe, this turn is I make the aggressive play I don't yet. I'm going to make an aggressive play into Gengar. Because the problem is, since Necrozma has no way to hit Mandibuzz, I'm kind of screwed. And it's funny though, because instead of Knockoff, I was considering running Earthquake, which would have actually been perfect in this scenario. Because if Mandibuzz ever roosted against my Necrozma, Earthquake would hit it for damage. And would have been fine. And I was tossing up between Earthquake and Knockoff, and thought Knockoff would be better, but really in hindsight, when you look at how this game played out, if I had the EQ as well, it put a lot more pressure on Mandibuzz every turn. It couldn't just freely roost up against the Necrozma. It was still taking the toxic chip, so it was just a lot of stuff. I definitely know that I can play a lot better than I did in this game, and just my prep was not as on point as I wanted it to be, quite frankly. I was pretty frustrated with myself. I believe this is the turn where I make a goat play into Gengar. Yeah, I figured he'd switch out. I get into Gengar, and he goes in AG, and in hindsight, I should have just clicked Shadow Ball. He couldn't risk Mandibuzz dying there. Like, when you think about it in the long term, he couldn't risk losing Mandibuzz on that turn, because then Gliscor kind of just wins. I mean, Necrozma kind of just wins too at that point. The combination of them wins if Mandibuzz dies. And because of that, I should have clicked Shadow Ball on that turn, because a Selgor from that range would have died to a Sucker Punch. After Toxic damage, probably would have died to Sucker Punch. And Medicham, I could have just gone back into Necrozma again. So Gengar could have survived for another turn, and at least I would have lowered the differential. Again, it's a situation of I would have lowered differential, but the big thing too is that if I hadn't made that stupid play against Clef, Gengar would have had 30% more HP. And with that 30% more, it wouldn't have got knocked out by Medicham going for the Bullet Punch, so he couldn't have just gone straight into it in that situation. So I could have clicked Shadow Ball against the Mandibuzz, knocked out the Aegislash, and been in a much better spot. But again, I just really messed up with my prep this week. I do feel very frustrated about it. I thought too much. I just thought way too much about it, and it really let me down. It was my Achilles heel in this game. I'm going to go hard into my Gliscor, because I knew he could potentially sneak, but he makes a fantastic prediction and hits me up with the Shadow Ball. I believe I just roost here. No, I have to EQ. I have no choice but to EQ there. And I believe I roost here. No, I go for Taunt. Even though U-turn was so obvious, I go for Taunt, because I kind of realized at this point it's a bit of a losing battle. Because obviously he can HP Ice here with his Selgor, and I choose to go into my Necrozma. And the reason I do this is because I'm going to go dive back in my Gliscor, and I'm going to try and get a cheap Toxic kill, which is not obviously the ideal way to do things, but it definitely was something I was considering. But Gypsy obviously is not going to let that happen. He doubles back into his Mandibuzz. Now, what I should have done there was on that turn, I should have doubled into my Gengar, because Gengar could have been a sack to a Selgor as a 1-for-1. And then if Mandy came in, I actually had something to play against it with, but I just fucked that up completely. Again, I think I was just on tilt, guys. I really didn't make a good play with the Xurkitree against the Aegislash, and it's all coming back to haunt me, because look how good Sub-Protect Diancie would be in this situation against Gypsy's team. There's not a whole lot he could have done. Like, I get that Bug Buzz can go through my subs, but I still would have put on so much pressure. I have to sack Gengar here because my Necrozma does not have enough health to take 2 Ice Punches. Even now it's a potential roll, but luckily it doesn't. But he does get the freeze, and luckily I thought it would have been pretty stupid. But I mean, like, at this point I know the game's done. I'm not going to try and I'm just going to skip the rest of this, guys. because the game is over. I know it's over. I think I just sacked my last 2 mons to Metachamp, because I knew it was over. Overall, I'm disappointed with myself. I definitely feel, reflecting on the game, I had little decisions in team building where if I just stuck to my guns and gone with what I knew was right, I genuinely do believe I would have won the game. And I know Gypsy will, say, oh, but this reason and that reason is why, that wouldn't have worked. But I've explained it to you. These sets that he's brought, the sets that I could have brought, and the thing is, though, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what sets I could have brought, what I could have done, what I should have done. I didn't do them. And I ended up losing 4-0. So a really, really rough start to the season for sure. I knew it was always going to be a hard game against Gypsy, but I do have a lot of confidence in myself to know that I can beat anybody on any given day. And losing to him here 4-0 was pretty frustrating, especially since I knew I could do better. Like, I knew I could do so much better than this performance. I felt in the early game I was actually in a fair bit of control, but that just one turn, allowing that Aegislash a free turn, was so detrimental for me. That was really, really bad. If I was able to Volt Switch there, completely different game, in my opinion. I could have put on a lot more pressure with a lot more of my team and potentially have the chance to win there, but you know what? That's the game we play, unfortunately. Not much I could really do. GG to Gypsy. Like, obviously, there's a reason why he's the 3-time champ in a row now. It's going to take something special to knock him off his perch, but we're off to a rough start. -4 differential, not looking great so far for our conference, but it is a long season. We do have Greg next week. I will give you a heads up for next week. Again, it's probably not going to be, there'll probably be no face cam or anything like that, and it's probably one of the worst games I've ever played in my life. I am not even joking with you. I think the issue with the game is going to be the mental state that I was in when we were playing, and it just wasn't great. But you know what? You'll find out about that soon. I didn't mean to spoil that game, it's just it was fresh in my mind, but we do lose this game to Gypsy. Definitely feel like I could have played better. Next time we'll get him, it's all good. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. If you have, like the video, subscribe, all that good shit, and I will catch you next week. We have Gregulator and the Los Angeles Clefable. Hopefully we can snag a W. We'll see what happens. But I'm Laverd. I'm out.